I feel like the primary application of every sermon should be like, behold, like the glory of Jesus.
Yeah.
So there's secondary, tertiary level application for sure, of things, people to practice out of union with Christ, out of relationship with him by his grace. But that primary application that is forefront for me is like, just behold, like the glory of Christ. I feel like my job is I get to go through an old treasure chest, and hold up some emerald or, diamond, turquoise stone and like turn it and be like, look at this is incredible. And so that brings me great joy to share that joy with others.
Hey, welcome to the Expositors Collective Podcast, episode 250. I'm your host, Mike Neglia, and the voice that you just heard is our special guest for this special episode, Pastor Heath Hardesty. Now, not only is this kind of a momentous number, 250 is a pretty high count when it comes to podcast episodes, but this episode is unique not only because of the numerical significance, which, to be honest, is more of just kind of a personal milestone for this podcast. I don't think it's going to impact you very much, but this is the only podcast that we've ever released that was recorded in the back seat of a car. So I thought this could be a momentous event to release such a momentous, rapidly moving episode. So Heath and I were driving on the motorway or the freeway in Vermont and decided to get some of our conversation on tape for you to listen to. Heath is a theologian, a preacher, a poet, and I really enjoy every moment I get to spend with him, and I'm excited for you to be able to listen in as well. Please forgive any lack of audio quality because, as I mentioned previously, it was recorded in the backseat of a moving vehicle. All right, I hope that this episode and the 249 episodes previous to this, and however many episodes are going to come in the future, they all work together to help you in your personal study and public proclamation of God's Word. All right. Hey, welcome to the Expositors Collective Podcast. I'm in a van heading on the I-89 South, going from Vermont down to Boston, and I'm here with my new friend, Heath Hardesty. Heath, how are you?
I'm great, Mike.
Did I pronounce your last name right?
You did.
All right. Well, we're friends, so I should know this by now.
You know that.
Heath, who are you? You're not from Vermont. What's your context? Where are you serving? I'd love to get some of that out of the way before I ask you about your first sermon.
Yes, all right. So I'm from Colorado originally, born and raised. A town called Longmont, lived most of my life there, and about 13 years ago, moved to the East Bay area of California to pastor a church in Pleasanton, California. I live in Livermore, which is a neighbor to Pleasanton, and so East Bay area.
Nice. Well, my friend and colleague Nick Cady pastors a church in Longmont, California.
Yes, that's right. Whitefields, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, okay. So, hey, Heath, what was your first sermon like? Where did you preach your first sermon in Longmont? What was your first sermon? How did it go? Bring us into that moment.
Yeah, so this takes us back to about 2008. I believe it was the summer 2008, and it was in Loveland, Colorado, which is just north of Longmont, Colorado there, at a small church there. Got connected with that church through a friend. They needed a pulpit fill.
Okay.
It was during the summer, and my name came up, and somehow I got chosen to do it.
Yeah.
And it was a wild experience. It was my first time preaching in a church. I had done devotionals and other talks at various places, universities and things, but I had never filled a pulpit in a church. And so it was a wild experience. I mean, I wish I had exposited the text much better than I had. It was Romans 1. I believe the title is something like Our Unpopular Worldview. I was doing a lot of worldview analysis and was trying to play on that, like just lean into like this upside down nature of the kingdom.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately it was probably more philosophy and Soren Kierkegaard than it was St. Paul from Romans. But I remember loving it and remember being nervous like crazy and then laying in bed that night going, well, what in the world did I just do?
Okay, yeah. So was it a Sunday morning? Was it an evening talk?
They had an evening service.
Okay, Sunday evening.
Yeah, it was a church plant. I think it was 1 or 2 years old.
Yeah.
And they were renting out another church, and so their service was in the evening.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So you okay. And when you laid in bed and thought it over, you were thinking, what have I done? And was that in like a, what have I done? I can't believe I've reached this pinnacle of my life? Or was like, what have I done? I really mishandled Romans 1.
It was, how did I get here?
Okay.
And it was a sense of like fear, trembling, and joy.
Yeah.
It's like the gravity. I felt the gravity of it afterwards.
Yeah.
But I also felt the joy of doing it, and knowing it was a first step and wanting to go further. But knowing like, okay, I got a long way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, so what year was that? Or rather, how old were you then?
Well, that was summer of 2008.
Okay. So since then, like, how have you grown as a teacher or preacher? Is Kierkegaard still prominent in your exegesis?
Well, in those things that I put within the sermon itself, yes, I would say he's in there every now and then, but that's, a cultural reference, philosophical bits and pieces, sociological bits and pieces as well, to engage those who are listening and to tie it all into the human condition and the human experience. So those pieces are in there, but I sure would hope that Kierkegaard would never take front and center.
Okay.
Yeah, expositing. I now know much better what it means to exposit, and I think I have sharper tools.
Okay.
In expositing.
Well, let's pause there. What does it mean to exposit? Like you said that your first sermon, you wish that you exposited better, and then now you said you finally understand what it means to exposit. So, what does that mean? What is expository preaching?
Yeah. So I pray that I did honor the text, but it floated freely and it did get to Christ. He was the point of the sermon, but I don't think I showed how that text fit in with a larger story, how the flow moved. I don't think I really honored the logical flow of the text itself, kind of working through it verse by verse, drawing out the authorial intent that was in it. It served more as a springboard for some things that I wanted to say, rather than letting the text breathe and speak through me by doing the proper exegesis and then exposition, putting it all together to deliver it to the congregation.
Okay. And how did you figure that out? Who showed you? Or did you get coaching or mentorship?
I'm an avid reader, so I was doing a ton of reading. And at that point, I had a lot of new influences come into my life through different pages of different books.
Okay.
And so I got introduced into the sphere of exposition through a number of those authors. A lot of Reformed authors at that point were speaking into my life, and so picking up on how those texts were taught. I did have some mentors as well. A great friend of mine, he became my pastor. I was his intern for a while. His name's Pastor Tom Hovestall in Longmont, Colorado.
Okay.
And he really helped bring me along.
Wonderful. Okay, so what are some things, like it sounds like you used to, or at least on that first one, really focus on worldview analysis and those types of things. Like, do you still do that? Is that prominent, or is it in the background, or is that just, you really, not part of your job description? Yeah,
well, I think there's beautiful apologetic ways to engage the congregation, to find the emotional resonance, to tap into their experience of life. So we need to be faithful to the text, but we need to be faithful to the congregation as well. So as I'm thinking through and planning sermon series and running those by the pastoral team, we're thinking through how the Lord's leading us, where our congregation is at, what's happening in the world, but not letting the world drive the agenda of the pulpit, but having the pulpit speak into and care for the world. So worldview analysis, cultural understandings, throwing in those references to various studies, different spheres of knowledge. Those, I think they're important.
Yeah.
But they need to undergird the text, and then they need to serve the glorification of Christ within the sermon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you do that? Or for the listeners that are listening to this, like there's some people that are, like the Carl Trumans or the Mark Sayers, of our, that they just seem to just get it. And I listen to them or I read them and I just think, oh, golly, wow, that sounds true. But how on earth do I see the world that way? How do I notice those patterns? How do you do that?
Yeah. That's a great question. I guess let me start with like desires and longings, like hopes and aches.
Okay.
So trying to be attuned to those within myself, and then looking out at the world and trying to understand the desires and hopes and aches and longings of others, which manifest in all the different experiences that we have in the world. So trying to not ask, what are people experiencing, but maybe why they're experiencing it, like the substructures underneath the surfaces of things. And I think that takes just a lot of pondering, walking around, thinking, reading, conversations with people, getting in dialogues, asking them of their experiences, and trying to get beneath the surfaces to those deep structures of the heart. So then you can bring that in and let the gospel minister to those deeper areas of the soul.
Okay. And so, thank you. So it's not like there's the experts and they're the ones who tell us how the world works. And then our job is to read those books and then say those things. It sounds like you're saying that like just with some thoughtful self-analysis and others analysis, you're working towards it.
Yeah. And I think so much of the pulpit is prepared for and cared for by being with the people and knowing the people.
Okay.
So knowing your context and knowing your congregation. We live in the East Bay area, and it's a very affluent area. There's a ton of PhDs. We have Lawrence Livermore labs, Sandia labs, engineers with multiple PhDs because of the tech industry. So getting to know how they think and why they think, understanding our context is super important. So you're not just talking to some general, audience out there. You're talking to people who had a very certain experience of life.
Okay. What's it like preaching to people who are smarter than you?
Oh man. My first week there, it hit me. Like how many of these people that I was speaking to had all these degrees, were super smart, and all these different disciplines, and I had literally just come off the plumbing truck in Colorado. Before I was a pastor, I was a plumber, and I thought, okay, here's this blue collar guy coming in, talking to all of these people who are just savvy, kind, smart, and doing really well. Yeah. Like, what are they going to get from me? Or will they listen from me? And the congregation was incredibly kind. Yeah. Incredibly kind. They put up with a lot throughout the years, for sure. They've been very gracious to me, and they've helped me along in the journey. Okay. But yeah, it was totally intimidating.
Okay. I should also say too, I asked that question as if I don't also preach to people who are smarter than me. And, for the members of Calvary Cork who might listen to this, you guys are smart too. You guys are smart too. Okay. Thanks for kind of bringing us in on that, and I do appreciate that. So those are some things that you maybe have started to do. Is there anything that you used to do when you were younger, in your early days of preaching, that you've been like, whoa, I'm so glad I stopped doing that? Like, what's a mistake you used to make that you're consciously not making anymore?
I mean, I'm sure there's a number of things. The way I use my tone, pitch, pacing, have certainly developed. I think I might have been a little more manic or anxious with body posture as I was uncomfortable. Like it took a while to find, like we were talking about earlier, like my voice, but also like my rhythms and just how my body functions, so to speak, in the pulpit. So there's those things. I feel like now, though I was captivated by Christ when he radically changed my life, and so those early days there was that zeal and that passion, but I feel like there's been a deepening appreciation for the beauty of Christ. Okay. And so I feel I hope what would be experienced if somebody went along the journey with me, that there would be a greater sense of the beauty, the majesty of Christ that is coming through, like a greater sense of worship in the pulpit, rather than kind of just information transmission, but rather worship, and we're holding up the excellencies of Christ.
Yeah, from the short time that I've got to sit under your preaching, I experienced you as somebody who was enjoying Christ in front of me, and I was invited in to like see the beauty of Christ that you were not just communicating to me, but like experiencing on the spot. And like, I do want to call that out, and I appreciate that. And obviously work goes into that, but then it probably seems like it looks to me as if it's effortless.
Well, good. Well, that brings me a lot of joy to hear that, because I love my job. I'll do the quotes when I say job, because it's amazing that I get to do this. I love being able to study the Word and then bring something to the congregation. So it's a great joy, and I feel like the primary application of every sermon should be like, behold, like the glory of Jesus.
Yeah.
So there's secondary, tertiary level application for sure. Things, people to practice out of union with Christ, out of relationship with Him by His grace. But that primary application that is forefront for me is like, just behold, like the glory of Christ. I feel like my job is I get to go through an old treasure chest, and hold up some emerald or diamond, turquoise stone, and like turn it and be like, look at this is incredible. And so that brings me great joy to share that joy with others.
Well, and it really is contagious. Again, I wasn't watching you enjoy Christ. Like, your enjoyment of Christ was causing me to enjoy Christ. And I think that's a definition of a good sermon.
Well, thank you.
And okay, what happens behind the scenes to get ready for such an event? Essentially, I'm asking kind of like, what's your sermon preparation like rhythm? How do you make it look so effortless and easy when, we all know, and everyone who listens to this show especially knows that it's a lot of behind the scenes work.
Oh no, I sweat blood behind the scenes for sure. I'm super slow on the uptake, so I have to like steep in it all week long.
Okay.
Like the whole Saturday night special thing, like not happening.
Yeah.
It's not going to come across well. So I start on Monday morning and open up the text in my study, and I sit with the text. I pray through the text. I diagram the words that pop out.
Okay.
I pray through that and try to find where the Lord's leading with that. I mean, there's a general idea as you sermon series plan, weeks, months ahead, because you break up the text into the right portions, the right segments. But actually, ground level getting into the texture of the text happens Monday.
Okay.
And so I'm in it most of Monday, trying to seek what the Lord would have for the congregation, do a lot of my word studies. After all that, then I'll dig into commentaries later in the day. And then come Tuesday, it's Team Tuesday. So all staff, pastoral team, service planning, a lot of meetings, and it's just the sermon's still percolating in the back of my brain.
Yeah.
Writing, it's like my writing Wednesday.
Okay.
I sit down and actually...
Can I cut across? On
it.
Tuesday, does anybody talk to you about it? Or is Tuesday like you're planning... On Tuesday, you're planning the upcoming Sunday, and are you saying, hey, I've been thinking about John chapter 8, and I've been thinking I'm going to say this, or is that just kind of internal?
Yeah, sometimes, and conversations will lead into it.
Okay.
We'll talk, service planning a little bit about the where I'm going with the sermon, but primarily it's logistics.
That's what I imagine.
Point.
Yeah, just the other stuff.
Exactly, all the surrounding stuff for the service with the team. Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. So Wednesday, is it writing Wednesday?
Writing Wednesday. You know, sit down and try to write the at least like 90% of it out. I manuscript mine. Not because I want to read it from the pulpit, but that's the way I'm wired. If I write it, then that's how it gets encoded in me.
Yeah.
Like the physical act of either writing notes with my hand or typing. Yeah. There's just something about the tactile nature of it that helps get it into me, and then I can see the text. Yeah. And then I'll read it aloud while I'm writing it and do editing on the fly as I'm doing that, and then hopefully I have a good percentage of it come the end of Wednesday. Thursday, I'll jump into it again. I have a lot of meetings usually on Thursday as well. And then by Friday morning, I hope to have version that I can do another edit, get the slides ready to go. Then Friday night to Saturday night is my Sabbath. So I just let it breathe. Don't touch it, get some distance from it. And then I get up early on Sunday morning, about 4:30 or so, and I have it in my calendar to have breakfast with Jesus. Okay. Sounds a little bit cheesy, but it helps me to say, no, I'm going to spend the time with Jesus over breakfast, lay the text out before me. It's printed, and then I shred it. I ask the Lord, is there something that needs to be cut? Is there something that needs to be added? Speak to me, Lord, because I'm in a different space on Sunday morning than I am the rest of the week, and so I'm praying through it.
Okay, awesome. How significant of surgery takes place on Sunday morning over breakfast? Are you tweaking words, or are you cutting paragraphs?
It depends on the week and how well I've listened. There's some weeks where it's just I'm changing some words, editing a few bits and pieces out. There's other weeks where it's that is not landing, or something's off, and I will rewrite an ending, or I'll move some pieces around, or I'll add some things in, and it looks like chicken scratch on my notes when I go up to the pulpit on those Sundays. Yeah. It's not clean.
Yes. Yeah. That's one of the reasons for me, I'm not interested in preaching from an iPad or preaching from a screen of any sort. There's got to be that tactile, the markings that I've made on that page, I think there's something what you mentioned on, was it Writing Wednesdays? You're using your hands. I think it's a special thing. Obviously there's great advantage to technology that I love, and we're on technology right now, However, I don't know. It's just good for our body and our brain to write things out. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely believe that preaching is this full embodied experience.
Yeah.
Right. We're fully embodied beings, and every fiber of us is created for His glory. So to be able to sit and write and take a walk and ponder and eat, and then drink some good coffee through the process, and it's all part of it. I live in a specific time, in a specific place. My home is my home. My church is my church. The food that I'm eating that week, it's all part of it somehow.
Okay.
So I like that Sunday morning over breakfast to really kind of bring it all together, pray through what needs to change, and then head to church.
Yeah. Well, the way you're describing it, it sounds nice. It sounds unhurried. And for me, I wake up about the same time on Sundays, and at my worst, it's oh man, Sunday's coming. Gotta finish this thing, and that's bad. That's the worst time to be finishing it. It sounds like for you, it's kind of finished on Friday, and then tweaked and finalized. I'm scrambling to finish it, but you're in a relaxed way finalizing it.
Well, that's my ideal week. There's a lot of weeks that are not so ideal. They're a lot more real than ideal.
Yeah,
They're
and then
raw.
also, that's my worst week too. I have plenty of ideal weeks too. Yeah, but
some weeks, just life happens, and things do get very raw, whether it's something in my own family life, or there's a funeral or a wedding, or just a lot of pastoral counseling that has come up that needs to happen, or just team stuff. We have a good sized church and team, and so there's a lot of things that need to get done. We're in a season right now where we're looking at the vision for next year and wrapping end of the year stuff up. So there was a lot of leadership, team, logistics stuff that had to happen that really crunched my week. And to be honest, the last 2 weeks, the sermon didn't start on Monday; it started more on Wednesday, and that does create more of an anxious feeling, which I would not prefer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, maybe as the final question, so Heath, how are you trying to get better? And that's actually a two-pronged question. What are the areas you're trying to improve in? And then what are you doing to improve in those areas? You're a man I know who is you're committed to improvement. And so what are those areas, and how are you trying to do it?
So I guess long-term planning to get a little bit more ahead in our sermon series planning. And that's not just simply for, better graphics or things and like getting everything coordinated, which that certainly will help with all the church communications, obviously the congregation, and then
your
preparing the
graphics
team.
do look good, by the way. Your John series, part 1 and part 2, looks great.
Oh, that goes to one of our fellow pastors, Jared. He's awesome. He does a great job with that. So thank you. I'll let him know you said that. But trying to plan out longer, just to give us some more runway to think through things and to pray through things. And my hope is that then what I can do is then each week I could study at different altitudes. So for instance, I can study at the 30,000 foot altitude for a series coming down the road, at like the 15,000 foot altitude of like the next series coming up. And then, on the ground for the week of, because then that will allow me for whatever that next sermon series is, or 3 months down the road, to be in those texts longer and let my brain and heart steep in those for a longer amount of time. So hopefully there's more richness. And then it allows for more conversations with my team and friends to talk through those texts. And it's not just week to week to week.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're trying to do that, but you're also taking steps towards it. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to take steps towards that. I feel like we just got an executive pastor who's great, and that's really going to help with the planning and preparation process, take a few things off my plate. So I can actually do the hard work of thinking. Sometimes I felt like I just can't sit and think. I have other things to do. It's like, no, I need to sit and think and dream and pray and then talk with people about these things. And so that's what I'm working towards, is a little bit more of that margin in my week to have time to think, dream, and pray.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to push back.
Do it.
Why do you need time or margin to think, dream, and pray? Can't you just do it while you're doing everything else?
Well, I mean, God's grace has been amazing to allow it not all to fall apart, even in the crush of everything that's been going on. But I guess for me, I would love to bring more of who I am, a healthier who I am, to the pulpit. Not simply just, again, like the sermon prep itself. So the more I can think through these things and pray and operate in an unhurried fashion, I think I'm going to bring a more restful, deeply engaged with the text, joyful pastor to the front. And so I think it's a needful and good thing.
Okay. Maybe,
does that work? Does that answer your question?
And here's maybe a final question. So in your teaching, you have like almost like a serious yet playful attentiveness to words and phrases, and someone paying attention is going to notice that like even your quick passing comments are thoughtful and deep and like multifaceted. Where does that come from?
Yeah, well, that comes from a word that I'm obsessed with, which would be mirth.
Okay.
And there's something about mirth that there's like a gravity to it, but a levity all at the same time. It's this beautiful paradox. So I think of writers that I love, like Lewis and Chesterton, and there's a sense of depth and majesty, but there's a sense of playfulness and joy.
Okay.
And so that's something I admire and I find captivating about people, about texts, and so I want to exhibit that. And so the craft of it is really important to me. I mean, I love poetry. I was a literature major, and to me, words have like tastes or feel.
Okay.
So I work on those to try to find the right tone.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you probably can't come up with those clever, mirthful, observant, pithy little sayings if you're starting on Friday. That's sort of thing that probably like upon reflection, upon steeping and thinking, that's when you're able to coin these phrases or highlight these things in a beautiful way.
Yeah, there's a fair bit of poetry about the sermon for me. And I look at the scripture and look at the proportion of scripture that is actually poetry, a rhythm and cadence and attention to words and tone. Because it's not just like function, there's form, right? And the sermon should have a form. I want it to have an arc to go from a tension to, like an unhealthy tension and dissonance to an integration and a healthy tension. So there should be an arc, but the words themselves carry weight, carry meaning, and make people feel things. And so that takes time. Like I don't think a really beautiful poem is just like banged out really quickly. Usually, like it takes meditation, steeping, reworking things. So that's the way I'm wired. And, yeah.
Well, Heath, thank you for your time. It's been a mirthful conversation. I would hope.
It has been mirthful, and these trees are all afire here in Vermont. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. So what are you looking at right now? What are we seeing?
We are seeing a wall of trees on both sides, and now a large ledge of rock. It's gorgeous.
Yes. And the back of Darren's head and the back of Dane's head. Thanks, guys, for turning off the air conditioner, and thanks for being so quiet. Also, I want to give a big shout out to James Reitmer, who is the editor of the Expositors Collective podcast, because this audio is going to be terrible. And so he's going to be working hard to make this as listenable as possible. So, James, thank you very, very much. We appreciate you. And to the listeners, I hope that this episode and all that we do at Expositors Collective helps you to grow in your personal study and public proclamation of God's Word. Thanks. Yeah, thank you so much, James. Thank you for your hard work of editing less than ideal audio. And thanks to you who listened to this all the way to the end. We appreciate you. And whether this is your 250th episode that you've listened to, or if this is your first one ever, I hope that this is one step closer to achieving your goal of really honoring the Lord with excellent and faithful Bible teaching. If you're new to the show, feel free to skim back our back catalog. There's some great stuff from Frederick Dale Bruner, John Tyson, Susie Silk, Brian Broderson, Nick Cady, and on and on and on. There's a lot of treasure for you if you want to scroll back through our old episodes. Okay, and as I always say, I hope that this episode and all that we do at the Expositors Collective helps you to grow in your personal study and public proclamation of God's Word.